Good morning. I invite Professor Nandini Sahu, Madam, Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Hindi University, West Bengal, India. Amazon's best-selling author, Professor of English and former Director of School of Foreign Languages, IGNOU, New Delhi is an established Indian English poet, creative writer, and folklorist. She is the author, editor of 23 books. Apart from being a double gold medalist during her graduation and post graduation, Shahu Madam is the recipient of gold medal from the Honorable Vice President of India for her contribution to English studies, the Michael Madhusudan Academy Award 2024, Lifetime Achievement Award 2024, Tagore Samman 2025, Honorary Fellowship 2025, and Ambassador of Eternity Award 2026 by International Academy of Ethics, India. Her research interests cover new literatures, critical theory, folklore, and culture studies, distance education theory, Hindu studies, Indian knowledge systems, comparative world literatures, children's literature, and American literature. So, Honorable Vice Chancellor Madam will present address note today. Thank you.
Sir, I express my deep sense of gratitude to Maharaja Dhiraj, Udaychand Women's College, University of Bardhaman, the principal of the college, and the organizer of this seminar, Dr. Indrajit Yadav, and his team, and the faculty of English, students, research scholars. I am very grateful to be a part of this very important seminar uh, sponsored by ICSSR ERC Kolkata and of course the University of Bardhaman, Maharaja Dhiraj Udaychand Women's College. My greetings to the Vice Chancellor of the university and the entire faculty and staff for holding this important seminar on the importance of Vande Mataram. Delivering keynote address on a subject like the Vande Mataram is definitely a huge responsibility, and I would rather make a humble attempt to express my views, to put my thoughts forward in front of you for a discourse and a discussion on this very important subject. I have taken a title for my keynote address. Rather than keeping it simply Vande Mataram, I have taken a title History, Philosophy, Nation, and Worldview. I have kept this title for my lecture for the day. I have a few research questions as well for the seminar for my lecture today. The research questions that I would be addressing today are: how does Vande Mataram transform devotional language into a historical idiom of nationalism? If you remember our childhood, we grew up with Vande Mataram in our schools, our colleges, and Vande Mataram has been a part of our national imagination and national consciousness. I don't remember a day during my childhood when we reached our school and after the anthem of the school or after the national anthem we had Vande Mataram, and that created goosebumps in me and in all my classmates. Initially, didn't know the reason. We didn't know why this song had such a strong impact on our consciousness all day. Maybe the musicality, maybe the euphonic words, the language, maybe the chanting, or maybe the rhyme, the rhythm, and some sort of nationalism got into all of us when we got the chance to listen to the song Vande Mataram. Of course, I'm not going to play the song for you, but I think every now and then I just happen to play it on the YouTube and listen to it and try to understand the layers, the meanings, the multidisciplinarity of the song, and with what mode and what mode. Bankim Chandra might have written this kind of a song. When I grew up, I think about these complex questions. So today I do not have a PowerPoint presentation or anything, just I have jotted down a couple of points. I would try to put those across, and I would like a collaborative effort between all the participants of the seminar and the organizers, including Dr. Indrajit Yadav, my colleague, and the scholars out there to also share their ideas on Vande Mataram with me. The second question that I would like to put across is, in what ways does Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay configure Indian knowledge systems to respond to colonial modernity through Vande Mataram? I have worked in Indira Gandhi National Open University, the world's largest university, for past 20 years as a senior professor and a director. And I also, when I was the director of the Department of Foreign Languages, we tried to incorporate some Indian knowledge systems translated into Indian languages. And then we have talked about Vande Mataram kind of songs in couple of foreign languages as well. How should historians read Anandamat, the novel, as a hybrid text, part history, part political philosophy, part mythic allegory? As a literary theorist, I emphasize in my classroom to read a text from New Historicism. Most of you are teachers from the history department, and I understand that many English teachers would also be a part of this seminar. So you might be asking your students to do new historicist reading or cultural materialist reading of literary texts or otherwise. For example, parallel reading of one text from literature, say Anandamat, and reading of a text from history regarding the making of West Bengal and its impact on the making of India and nationalism would serve the purpose better. By new historicism, Raymond Williams, what he intended is parallel reading of two texts while not actually giving a preference of one text over the other. No particular text in new historicist reading should be given importance or more weightage over the other text. Rather, two texts should be complementary to each other. You should be in a position to read two texts from two entirely different disciplines by comparison, by comparative approaches, or even by translation. Given that situation, if we read Bankim Chandra's Anandamath kind of a novel, which is such an impactful novel on the world and the history of the world, if we read that alongside anthropology, history, sociology, and even ethnomusicology, then probably we are serving the purpose and we are giving a good interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, and a multidisciplinary approach to the text, which is a very welcome effort at this point of time. The country is thinking about the collective imagination, the cultural imagination, and the impact of the song Vande Mataram. And today I feel privileged, I feel fortunate to have got an opportunity to speak on this very impactful and this very powerful song. My next question for today's keynote address would be: how did 19th century print culture in Bengal enable the circulation of nationalist effect and collective memory? We always say that West Bengal thinks ahead of the country. And if you look at texts like Anandamath, or even you look at texts by Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay, or say, Rabindranath Tagore, or so many eminent writers out there, look at the poetry by Torudat. When nobody was thinking or writing in English in the country, the Dutt family album that came in English. So Bengal has been thinking ahead of time. And when I read and reread Anandamath or even Tagore's Gora, I'm reminded about those kind of ideas, and I cannot agree more. and I am ever so inspired by the literature from West Bengal. Even when I was a small child in Odisha, growing up in Odisha, I used to read Bengali novels in English or Odia translation. And when I went to IGNO as a professor and then I became a director, I introduced whole lot of Bengali literature in various courses in MA in folk literature, MA in English. In English translation, I was instrumental in introducing Bengali signature texts into national and international level syllabi. Now, coming to Hindi University, where I have been the Vice Chancellor since little more than 1 year, we are revising our syllabi of various courses. Also, we are planning to introduce new MA courses. I have been thinking what kind of texts we should be introducing for our students, and Bankim Chandra's Anandamath definitely is one of those where our students will learn about the national consciousness and they would understand better values of humanity. The next question that I would like to put across for today's lecture is what ethical model of nationalism does Bankim Chandra propose and how does it differ from the later statist nationalism? What was the difference between the nationalism of Bankim Chandra and the nationalism of many other writers out there or many other thinkers and philosophers out there is one of the ideas that I would like to put across today. And another question that actually, haunts me is how does Bankim's engagement with Western political and moral philosophy reshape indigenous historiography? Being a folklorist, doing a lot of work on folk literature and introducing the country's first MA in folklore and culture studies with almost like 20,000 pages, I thought a lot about tribal studies, folk literature, folk studies, marginal studies, and the idea of the subaltern. In this scenario, how does Bankim Chandra contribute to the indigenous historiography through this novel and even through this song? If you listen to the song carefully, Sujalam, Supalam, Sasya Shamalam, so the song, all of us know it. It talks about a kind of a green culture. We are thinking so much about green cultural studies, ocean humanities, blue humanities. Then thinkers are coming forward to talk about, ecofeminism, eco-criticism, then, ethics and morality in literature, art for life's sake, post-colonial literature. So these kind of thoughts are slowly coming into our universities, rather, I would say, in a big way. And a period when Bankim Chandra was born, he had the conviction to talk about green cultural studies and ocean humanities through his music. Look at the musicality of the song. Look at the rhyme scheme, the pattern of the song. Somebody who has a very balanced mind, a very euphonic mind, will only be in a position to pen down this kind of a song where music and memory culture come together. And this is what actually influences me to no extent. What role does the maternal metaphor play in constructing ideas of sacrifice, duty, and citizenship? In the novel, of course, Bankim Chandra thought about human relationships in a much deeper way. So, my question in this lecture will also be what role does maternal metaphor, how the mother figure. So the planet Earth is presented to us as the mother who nourishes you, the mother who protects you, who provides for you, somebody who is an ecofeminist. So to me, Bankim Chandra's mother in this song is an ecofeminist. She thinks about the planet Earth. She talks about livestock and preservation, education and food for all, sources of life for all, beauty, a thing of beauty which is a joy forever. Bankim Chandra talks about that kind of a beautiful planet Earth where everyone is enjoying being nourished in the beauty of the planet Earth, the green culture of the planet Earth. So this kind of an euphonic song has not just touched my heart, it's a part of my soul if I am not exaggerating. Then the next question is, how does Anand Bhatt historicize resistance without endorsing anarchic violence? It endorses resistance. Yes, one has to resist when it is needed, when it is required. But the novel does never endorse any kind of violence or anarchy. That is one of my points today, where I would be trying to quote something from the novel, quote a bit from the song, and then probably I would be, putting my point across. In what ways can Bankim Chandra be situated in global intellectual history alongside European nationalist thinkers? After the Britishers left India, English education stayed back. In Indian universities, English education is a must. And a lot of European literature, European and American theorization, we are doing in our English and history and anthropology, even social sciences classrooms. Given that situation, in what ways Bankim Chandra be he can be situated in the intellectual global history alongside European and American nationalist thinkers? I would quote a bit on that. And my next question for today is, how can Bankim's thought be reread today through interdisciplinary lenses? Interdisciplinary research is coming in a big way to Indian universities. There was a time when we used to do intradisciplinary research. Now, what is intradisciplinary? Intradisciplinary research is within a text. You are reading a text within that text, the meaning of the text in, I would say, as a teacher of English, I would say it's a very, very simplistic approach to a text. Then in the late 70s and the mid 80s, cultural studies got into literature departments in a big way. That is where interdisciplinary research entered. We started reading Raymond Williams, and by interdisciplinary research, I mean looking at one text from the perspective of another, or looking at one discipline from the perspective of another. So that is when interdisciplinary research created departments where history and English and anthropology, social sciences, sociology, and ethnomusicology and folklore teachers started exchanging ideas in the departments. Now, multidisciplinary is the creation of a new discipline by taking ideas from all the disciplines that I just now told you. And transdisciplinary is more or less similar, but yes, it's not synonymous. By transdisciplinary, when you create some research between the disciplines while maintaining the distinct ideas of each discipline. No discipline would step into other while exchanging ideas. But multidisciplinary research has always been my personal favorite as a scholar and a teacher. Creation of a new discipline is very, very important for you, for all of us. When Dr. Indrajit Yadav came to me with the concept note of this seminar, he said, "Ma'am, I don't think anyone else except for you is suitable to deliver the keynote address on this subject." I was a bit of apprehensive. What does he want me to do exactly? Then I said, "Do you have any concept note? I would like to have a look at it." And when I looked at the concept note, uh, he doesn't know, probably he has prepared one of the most beautiful and impactful multidisciplinary concept note. He has taken so many disciplines into consideration, and I'm sure that this seminar that they are holding today, yesterday and today, 2 days they have done this seminar. After the seminar, I am sure they are going to get quite a few research papers, publications from the participants and the scholars. Dr. Indrajit is the editor of Fuji's Hindi University Journal of Interdisciplinary Studies. He is also a guest faculty in Hindi University, where he is the editor of that journal. I would discuss with him, and we would try to take all the research papers presented these 2 days in the seminar, and we would like to make a special issue on Vande Mataram, and your papers would be extremely useful for us. Please have a word with Dr. Indrajit. I have my approval to do so. Okay. Now, coming back to my lecture, all of you must have heard the song 100,000 times. So I'm not going to sing it for you, but please allow me to interpret the song for you in a very very simple manner. Vande Mataram is it's not just a patriotic hymn. No, it's not just a patriotic song. It's a condensed philosophy of the nation articulated through affect, ecology, ethics, and devotion. What a beautiful way to put it across. The song unfolds the idea of the motherland as simultaneously material and metaphysical. And the land of rivers, I said it's about green cultural studies and ocean humanities and blue humanities. The song talks about it. A land of rivers, fields, crops, and fertility. You know, as a folklorist, if I look at the creation myth, the philosophy, the theory of the creation or the creation myth, the idea of fertility is not just confined to a woman giving childbirth. Fertility is a very broad term. A fertile mind, a fertile heart, a folk mind, and a sacred and a morally, ethically correct mind is also a fertile mind, and a moral presence that commands reverence rather than possession. The song is about reverence, about respecting the planet Earth. It's not about possession of the planet Earth. See, look at the ideas that COVID has given us. The moment human beings try to present themselves as the most powerful species on Earth, COVID reminded us that you are as important as a rabbit or a fish or maybe a bird. And this song has been already telling those ideas to us. You know, the ideas of Anthropocene, the ideas of the human world and the animal world are equally important on the planet. The song has been giving us the ideas of the Anthropocene. I think the scholars of Anthropocentrism would agree with me. By invoking the nation as mother, so Mataram, the mother, by invoking the nation as mother, the song redefines political belonging as an ethical relationship rooted in care, gratitude, responsibility, and it is not about conquest or possession or domination. Bankim Chandra is not in favor of possessing the planet Earth. Neither he is in favor of conquering or dominating any species or any part of the planet. Free flow of thoughts, mutual understanding, geo originado. The idea of Indian knowledge systems and Hindu studies is Jive Daya. Be kind to all the species, all the animals, birds, and human beings, and even plants. Jive Daya. So this idea of Jive Daya is very much there in Vande Mataram. Its language moves seamlessly from sensuous description of nature to spiritual exaltation, suggesting that the nation is sustained not only by territory or power, but by collective emotions, memory, and sacrifice. The song is so much about sacrificing your personal interests for the nation. Crucially, Vande Mataram transforms devotion into civic virtue. To salute the motherland is to commit oneself to her dignity, regeneration, and protection. See, the idea of protection is so beautiful. Protection, do not narrow it down. Nobody needs a protector or a provider. But if you look at the idea of protection from planetarity or from the planet Earth. Don't you think that the planet has been protecting you? If there is heavy wind, if there is nature red in tooth and claw, as the romantic poets have put it, don't you think that at some point or other, the planet has been protecting you? If there is extreme heat, next day there is heavy rain. The clouds will come forward to protect you. If there is starvation, next day there are crops. So if we don't abuse the planet will never be red in tooth and claw. That's what I believe. We believe. Bankim Chandra believed. If we use and utilize the resources of the planet Earth properly, without possession, without aggression or arrogance, the planet is going to give us back with green and blue cultures, food, livestock, sustenance, protection. This is what was the basic idea of the song Vande Mataram and the entire novel thereof. Okay. Then in the song, the song functions as a moral character of nationalism, where freedom is inseparable from self-discipline, love is inseparable from duty, history is a sacred trust passed on from one generation to the next. How influenced we are by these ideas from our oral cultures. There was a time for hundreds and thousands of years in Indian history and otherwise when no literature was written. There was orality. People used to pass on the ideas from generation to generation by the memory culture. By remembering, we used to pass on our ideas to the next generation. In this song, freedom is inseparable from self-discipline. You know, sometimes our youth, they go to some podiums, some platforms, and then they shout freedom, freedom, freedom. It happened in one of the biggest universities in the country where I was a speaker in a seminar. So I asked the youngsters that you are talking about some sort of freedom. I do understand and I do appreciate your ideas of freedom, but freedom from what? Freedom from the system, freedom from slavery, freedom from your mental slavery, or freedom from something else, freedom from responsibilities. Then they were speechless because the idea of freedom, idea of rights, they come with the idea of duties, accountability, sustainability. If you want to receive your rights without performing your duties, then probably this is a disservice to the planet. So, this is what the song promotes in some way or other. And then self discipline is important in the song. Love is inseparable from duty. History is a sacred trust. It's passed on from one generation to the other through memory culture. Many of the departments, including history, anthropology, and English, they are talking about Nemo culture, M-N-E-M-O, Nemo culture, which is memory culture. Memory culture is one of our literary theories and approaches which we use for the interpretation of our texts. And in this, memory plays an important role, a civilizational role towards the growth and development. History doesn't speak in dates and documents all the time. When it is history, we are always reminded about 1947, 1998, the dates only. But I would say that history is not only dates. Sometimes history sings Vande Mataram. In one such historical utterance where land is the language, where emotion is ideology, devotion is politics. For historians, this song is not just a symbolic song, it is archival. It's redemptive. The song preserves in it the ethical anxieties, aspirations, and imaginings of a colonized people striving to articulate sovereignty without a state. To invoke Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyaya to me is to engage history not just as a record or as a date, but to live history as a consciousness. That is what I understand from this song. And then, if you allow me to talk about Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay's life at the threshold of the empire when the Britishers were in the country, born in 1838 in Bengal, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, he stands as a crucial historian threshold between pre-colonial cultural memory and colonial administrative modernity. Educated in Western thought and employed within the British civil service, Bankim Chandra embodies what historians may call colonial duality. Still, his significance lies precisely in his refusal to accept the colonial modernity as the only horizon of reason. Rather, he undertakes a critical re anchoring of Indian civilization in ethical, philosophical, and historical self confidence. Like the Western figures of public intellectualism, Bankim Chandra uses literature as a space of historical intervention. Even our folklorists did that. The song like Khoob Ladi Mardani, O To Jhansi Wali Rani Thi. That song, it has actually touched the collective imagination of a people, of an entire community. People who could not read a text, people who didn't have formal education, they heard those kind of songs and they were ever so inspired in the colonial period. Similarly, Bankim Chandra uses literature as a space for historical intervention. His novels, essays, and songs they constitute an alternative historiography. I am a big fan of these ideas of alternative modernity and alternative historiography. There is not one truth. I will put it in a simplistic manner. Sometimes what happens, people think that the kind of life they are living is the best life, and the kind of life that others are living may not be as good. But this is not true. There is an alternative truth which may lie because they are not able to speak. A lot of people do not have speech. A lot of people do not have a voice. That is where writers and thinkers like you and me should come forward. One of my poetry collections, Sukoma and Other Poems, is about a tribal woman, Sukoma, and she was not able to speak. She never understood Odia. She spoke in Kui language, and then she was a subaltern. She was a marginal person. She was a marginalized person from the tribal Kond community. And her husband itched those tattoos on her face, vertical and horizontal tattoos, and she could not speak. The husband wanted to make her less beautiful so that she is less desirable for people out there. When I was 7 years old, I saw that and I protested. At that time, even I was that kind of a feminist or an eco feminist. I went to Sukama's house and I actually punished Sukama's husband by hitting him black and blue in the deep, dense night when he was drunk and asleep. Bankim Chandra had a voice to speak for the subaltern. He used literature as a space for historical intervention. Places where people could not speak, he made literature speak for him and for them. His novels, his essays, his songs, they constitute that kind of an alternative historiography. When one person is not able to speak, then the other person who has a voice or who has a pen should be able to speak for the subaltern, the tribal, the marginal, and women. He compared nature with women. When he treated nature as mother, he definitely was speaking in favor of women and their well being. And the historiography that he created, it doesn't merely narrate events, it interrogates some kind of value systems. What is freedom? His questions are like, what is freedom? What is duty? What binds a group of people together? Now, coming to the novel as history, I would say, and Bankim Chandra's methodological innovation. The novel has a method. If you read it carefully, I had read it when I was doing my graduation long ago, some 200 years ago. And then when Dr. Indrajit Yadav invited me once again, now I reread the novel. And this time I read the novel as history. I read the novel as philosophy. I read the novel as music. A lot of things came into my mind, and it was quite an overwhelming experience for me to reread this very important novel. From the Department of History, Bankim Chandra's most enduring contribution lies in his transformation of the novel into a historical form. The novel is not simple, not simplistic, it is definitely a historical form. Prior to Bankim Chandra, history was largely the domain of chronicles of colonial ethnography, and Bankim Chandra reclaims history as narrative, ethics, and imagination. His historical novels do not reproduce facts mechanically, they interpret history as moral processes. And in this sense, Bankim Chandra parallels Western historical novelists like Walter Scott, but with a crucial difference. His understanding of time is deeply informed by Indic cosmology. Western universities have Indic studies departments where they are discussing Bankim Chandra. History for Bankim is not a linear progress, it is dharma in motion. To me, dharma is not religion, dharma is not ritual. Dharma is a consciousness, dharma is a way of life. For example, as a teacher, my dharma is to complete my syllabus, giving justice to the subject, and doing my duty, performing my duty. My dharma as a mother is taking care of my children. My dharma as a vice chancellor is doing good administration corrupt pre-administration in the university. My dharma as a speaker in this seminar is to do justice to the invitation that the organizers have extended. So, dharma cannot be confined to religion or ritual. To me, dharma is responsibility. Dharma is a way of life, it's a way of living. And Bankim Chandra's dharma was dharma in motion. It's a continuous struggle between moral decline and regeneration. This is the idea behind the novel. Anand can be read from history, insurgency, and ethical nationalism. Anand occupies a central place in Bankim's historical vision, set against the backdrop of the late 18th century Sannyasi rebellion. The novel reimagines resistance not exactly as armed revolt, rather as a disciplined ethical awakening. The ascetic soldiers of Anand they are not anarchic, they are moral agents bound by restraint, sacrifice, and purpose. And for historians, this is crucial. This idea is very, very crucial. Anand doesn't glorify violence for its own sake. You know, instead, it asks a deeper historical question: when does resistance become legitimate, and what ethical limits must it observe? The monastery, Mutt, becomes a symbolic space where renunciation and nationalism collaborate, converge, they come together. It's a uniquely Indian resolution to the problem of political action under colonial rule. That was the idea behind the novel. And look at Vande Mataram as political theology and historical consciousness. Emerging from the novel Anandamat, Vande Mataram, the song, it transcends the novel to become a living historical force. Like in the entire Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita is the essence. In the entire novel, probably, if I am correct, the song is the essence. The song articulates what may be called political theology to you, to me, where the nation is imagined through sacred imageries drawing upon the Shakti ideas and the Shakti traditions. The land is envisioned as the mother. The mother is wounded, still she is powerful, nurturing yet demanding sacrifice. This metaphor must be read historically. Don't read the metaphor simplistically, read it metaphorically, and don't go for reduction of the meaning of the metaphor. The maternal nation is not a gendered limitation, it is an ethical summon. It transforms political obligation into filial duty, making nationalism an effective and moral bond and not just a legal construct. The power of Bande Mataram is precisely that it mobilizes without a coercion, it unites without uniformity. That is the power of Bande Mataram. Now, coming to a dialogue with Western and Indian thoughts vis-a-vis Vande Mataram, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay is neither insular nor reactionary. His writings reveal deep engagements with Western philosophy, positivism, moral nationalism, and romantic nationalism, while simultaneously drawing upon Indian epistemologies, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhakti traditions, and the Puranic ethics. That is why in the beginning I said that his association with Indian knowledge systems and Hindu studies is very, very deep. Unlike the colonial binaries that oppose tradition to modernity, Bankim Chandra proposes a civilizational modernity. Progress is not a limitation of the West, it is a ethical refinement rooted in the cultural self-knowledge of the East. The Oriental and the Occidental cultures coming together in the hands of Bankim Chandra. This dialogic vision allows the historians to place Bankim Chandra in the global intellectual history as a thinker responding to creatively to the universal 19th century question: how does people become a nation? What a pertinent question. His question was: how can people become a nation? How do they become? And then probably this kind of a song, Vande Mataram, is making people a nation. And then now coming to Bengal, India, and the world. From the micro world of the Bengalis to the macro world of India and the world, Bankim Chandra's contribution to West Bengal is foundational, no doubt. He shaped modern Bengali prose, he historicized regional memory, and he fostered a public culture of reading and reflection. And then nationally, his ideas energized the Swadeshi movements and informed later freedom fighters. Internationally, Bankim Chandra stands alongside other cultural nationalists who argued that nations are sustained not just by force, rather by shared moral, academic, emotional, intellectual imagination. And then, if you talk about the gender, ethics, and historical debates in the novel, the maternal imagery, Ma imagery in Bankim Chandra's nationalism has invited critiques, no doubt. And such critique is historically not so productive. Yet, within its 19th century context, the mother figure functions as an ethical abstraction, a symbol of care, suffering, responsibility. For historians, this opens important conversations and questions that includes me, important questions and conversations there on how metaphors shape political subjectivity and collective ethics. That is one question that Bankim Chandra has left open-ended for all of us. Then why Bankim Chandra matters to history today? Suddenly, why the country is sitting and watching Bankim Chandra, and then why the country is talking so much about him today. Bankim Chandra matters today because he teaches historians to read beyond archives, beyond texts, through songs, stories, memory culture, symbols, and emotions, and through green culture, green cultural studies, and through blue humanities and ocean humanities. He demonstrates that history is not just written by rulers and institutions on power, but it can be imagined by poets and novelists. That is where my kind of folklorists and ethnomusicologists come forward to read and reread Bankim Chandra. Bankim Chandra's work urges us to view nationalism not exactly as an ideology, but as a moral and a cultural project. Before I conclude, I would say that to remember Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay is to remember that history has a conscience. History has a character. It has a mind of its own. History is not just a text. Vande Mataram endures, sustains, it's everlasting because it asks questions that are very, very urgent. How do we love our land without excluding others? Is one question. How do we modernize ourselves without forgetting our civilizational soul and our past? That is one question. In engaging with Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay today, this seminar has done a great service to the nation. I congratulate Dr. Indrajit Yadav and the entire team. And by this seminar, we affirm a vision of history that is interdisciplinary, ethical, and a history which is very, very deeply human. A history that doesn't exactly record the past in a text, rather, it illuminates the future through music, literature, and sustainability. Namaskar. Vande Mataram.